Welcome to the Shutdown Stories. This is episode 9. I'm Nate Stein. I'm joined by Brian Jones, the video coordinator for the Colorado Rockies. Brian, thanks for doing this.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on. Give me something to do today.
Yeah, absolutely. I know everybody's looking for something. So you were obviously down at spring training with the team when all the news about the season being postponed and the coronavirus cancellations really started coming down. What was that day like when you were sitting in Arizona and you heard that the season was being pushed back?
It was everything happened so fast. I think once Rudy Gobert tested positive for the Jazz, I think we kind of all knew that once the NBA shut down, that it was a matter of time before everything else started to go on pause for a little bit. So it was just kind of like the next day, it ended up raining in Phoenix, so our game was going to be our spring training game was going to be postponed anyway. But the whole time it was kind of like just waiting on the league to shut the whole thing down. And the teams in Florida were actually playing games that day, but the whole feeling was, what's the point? We know we're going to have to all shut down now because of the magnitude of this. I think it just really hit the country kind of all at the same time once Gobert got it, like, oh, whoa, this is a serious deal. I think Tom Hanks got it or announced he had it within minutes or right before that too. So it was just kind of whoa, this thing is a little more than what we expected. So that whole day we knew we probably weren't going to be playing. And they finally paused spring training. And so we had a meeting and everyone was just like, hey, it's going to be postponed a couple weeks. We're going to kind of shut down for the weekend and then kind of, work out and figure out our game plan for the following week. And then over that weekend, it was basically like, no, it's not going to be a couple weeks. We got to, everyone's going to have to try to be, isolated, quarantined, social distanced. There's no way we're going to be able to get together and have practices or even expect to start our season in mid-April. So it all happened really fast. I think that first week, after the NBA shutdown, it seemed like so much happened in a matter of days. Plans were happening and then plans were changing before those plans could even be implemented. So it was kind of wild at first, just trying to grasp what was happening. And then, once you got home, I think 3 days after that, it's just kind of been on slow down and wait and see. And it's been like the rest of the country trying to, figure out how to keep ourselves busy, how to stay safe. And if baseball's going to happen, we have no idea. So we're just kind of just waiting it out.
Yeah, you said that everybody kind of saw it coming when the news about Rudy Gobert and the NBA and Tom Hanks all came down. Was there any communication from the league office leading up to their final decision that baseball would be postponed?
The only communication was just we had some the team, the training staff and the medical staff had put some information together to show the team about the COVID virus and, steps you can take to, ensure your safety as best as possible. Media had already kind of been pushed out of the locker room, trying to keep any visitors out. So it was just kind of a slow burn of next steps to take to try to keep everyone as healthy as possible without ever thinking the whole thing was going to come to a halt until the NBA thing happened. I think we had all kind of thought about, hey, once the NCAA tournament had announced that there was going to be no fans in the stands, that was like a whoa moment. And we thought that might be the case moving forward in spring training for a little while, but I don't know if any of us expected to completely be on lockdown for this long.
I do want to talk about the idea of playing without fans. I've had a chance to talk to a few athletes in different sports and clubs that have given me their thoughts on what it would be like to play in an empty stadium. How does that affect your job, if at all?
Hardly any. I mean, my job, I sit inside anyway and watch on TV basically like I'm at home. I just have more angles than everybody else. So it wouldn't affect me that much except for knowing that it's got to be pretty eerie out, just seeing the crowd shots with no fans or seeing the stands and just probably the noises in an empty stadium, the echoes and things like that would be super weird. But as far as the way I would have done my job, that wouldn't have changed a whole lot.
I know you and I have talked about your job in the past. When I was teaching at Valor, you came in and spoke with my class kind of about what it is you do. For those of the viewers at home that don't really have an idea of what a video coordinator does at the major league level, can you give some insight on that?
Yeah, there's a few different parts to it. The main part is recording multiple angles of every pitch of all of our games. So the players and coaches and front office can go back and watch whatever they want to see from a game and be able to pull it up quickly. So we're cutting every pitch down into its own single clip. So if we want to search for every two-strike guy on second base with 2 outs at bat during the game, we can pull those up right away. It's just attaching a bunch of metadata to video clips and storing them on a server so they have easy access to them if they're needed to be queried. The second part of that is just helping players, maybe go over some of those video clips to analyze their swing or their pitching mechanics. And we also use our database to do a ton of advanced scouting for all of our players and coaches, individually based, as far as just wanting to see what the other team's doing, what the opponent does in a certain situation, whether it's watching, 15 ground balls versus right-hand hitters, just to kind of get another idea of where the infielder should be positioned, along with all the data that comes in from analytics. It's all one thing now. And then the other part I do during the game is be on watch for any close calls that the umpire may have missed for instant replay purposes, and be in communication with the dugout to either challenge a play or to just let the play on. But every close call is examined thoroughly.
And obviously all that stuff is reliant on the game happening. There's no going to be 2 calls that you challenge that are the exact same. So what have you been doing to kind of make sure your eye stays sharp so you are able to identify those plays that you would like to challenge?
There's not a whole lot you can really do. Just kind of waiting it out this time of year. Everything is kind of different. It doesn't take much to just jump right back in and get used to looking at the different angles and things like that. And every play is different, like you said. So there's not a whole lot of. I guess if I wanted to, I could do some like eye training type of things, but I haven't felt. I've never gone through something like this for this long, but I have gone a whole off season without being on top of it, and it's kind of like riding a bike a little bit if you've done it before.
Yeah. So with all this free time, are you diving into some new hobbies? Are you finding free time to expand yourself in that way?
I wouldn't say new hobbies, but my wife's got plenty of new projects around the house on the list. So we finished one and 2 more get added. Trying to help her with some homeschooling for our kindergartner. He's trying to enjoy the time at home. Just know that just being grateful, just to be able to get some more time with the family and trying to make the best of it.
Yeah, it's the time of year where you're often traveling a lot or out of town on spring training. So I'm sure that time with the girls is really incredible for you. What is your perspective as a father going through this?
It's really just trying to, be more in touch with keeping your family safe, and, trying to keep them home as much as possible. Let me go run all the errands and wear all my personal protective gear, and, trying to make sure we're sanitizing things. We know it's obviously a little more dangerous for, immune or people with autoimmune situations and older people, but just trying to keep the family safe and just really protect them, and just making sure we have it's funny that the things that you think you need outside of a pandemic are really not that important when you're inside one of those things, as long as you got nice place to sleep and have some food, and just really just focus on loving each other, loving those around us, and just really realizing what's really important. We get so busy in our lives, just go, go to this, do to that, take this person there, go to school, go to work, and this slow down maybe will help all of us to realize maybe we don't need to be so bogged down with some of the things that we were during normal times, and maybe this is kind of helping want to figure out what's most important and what needs to be in our life and not in our life moving forward.
Yeah, that's a really interesting thought to be having, as far as I think a lot of people are having it, where it's like, hey, we're in this different scenario where obviously a lot of people are out of work or unable to do their jobs normally, but we're still trying to push forward. How do you see kind of the world, or at least from your perspective in your stage of life, how do you see socially things moving forward?
I mean, it's interesting, right? I mean, some of the, like, I just think about going to, like, because at Rockies games, I'm not in the stands, but like going to like a Bronco playoff game, a touchdown happens and you're like hugging strangers and high-fiving everyone around you. I don't know when that's going to, happen again. Maybe I would say that the impressions of this will last for a while, but like anything, if it goes away, the vaccine comes in and everyone can, be cured of if they get the COVID. Maybe this fades off and we go back to that normal. But I think until then, you probably miss hanging out with your friends. You don't take that for granted. Hanging out with family, getting in groups for dinner, going out to eat, and enjoying restaurants and different coffee shops or places of gathering around town. I would say it's going to be kind of a slow ease in for everyone to do that. But hopefully someday we can all hug strangers again. I don't know if we will, if that'll ever happen or not, but hopefully moving forward, we'll be able to, get into restaurants and concerts and going to coffee shops and just, enjoying the places where we live and the people around us. And we don't know what this is going to be like. I'm really interested to see kind of how this moves forward once the restrictions are kind of lifted and we move toward back the way we came from, whatever that looks like. And I don't know. Is this going to be a new way of life, or is this going to be something that's forgotten in a year or 2 years, and we're just going to be something we tell our grandkids about?
What
so
about more on the baseball side? Do you see games without fans in the crowd at all as something that's pretty realistic and something that the league is starting to look into more seriously?
I mean, I'm sure they're looking, as far as I know, they're looking at any avenue that they may be able to play. Like, I know that the players want to play, the owners want to have games, and it just, if there's a way to safely keep everyone from, being at risk, then, let the games happen, I guess. I would think if there's baseball this year, it's definitely going to be without fans. I have a hard time seeing them letting a bunch of fans in a packed stadium anytime before really a vaccine is out there. So I would say if that's the only way baseball happens this year, I don't know what form that is, whether it's, there's talks of every team playing in Arizona, teams playing in Florida and Arizona. I'm sure there's talks of teams playing in their own stadium without fans, depending on the situation in each city across the country. It's tough to say what that looks like. It would definitely be weird. And there's a lot that goes into that with, just the Players Association and the ownership. And how does that work for revenues and player salaries? And how's that look with just to make the money go around the way, obviously sports are a big money business, and just making sure that the economics of everything fit also into the safety and things like that as it relates to playing games. So it's hard to say right now until we have a little more clear path on maybe how we reopen the rest of this country kind of moving forward.
Well, Brian, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you joining me on the Shutdown Stories today. Say hi to your family for me.
Will do, for sure.